Hello,
Hey.
everybody. I am delighted to have Liran here from Woo join us. I first saw Woo back in Bullhorn Engage back in 2022. And the thing that struck me was there was a queue of people coming, trying to get onto your stand. And I was like, what do I need to do to be these guys? Is kind of what I thought at the time. I was like, these are the hottest tech in the room, clearly, or these guys have got the right product for this market right now. So we've been fortunate enough to stay in touch for the last few years. Obviously, worked together with joint customers, doing some joint events. If you want to introduce yourself and a little bit about Woo, and then I've got some questions here to jump into. We've got a bunch of questions around data and candidate experience for us to jump into.
Absolutely. So first, thanks, Matt, for inviting me to this webinar. It's great. So excited to speak about, the topic we will discuss in a minute. Just a quick introduction. I'm one of the founders and the CEO of Woo. Woo is, company that very much involved in the Bullhorn ecosystem and in the recruiting space. What we basically doing in high level is we fixing a very fundamental part of becoming an efficient recruiting operation, which is the data that you have in your Bullhorn, which means that every agency collected so much powerful data regarding their candidates, all those candidates that went through the agency along the years, and same for the customers of the agency. The problem is that those agencies find it very challenging to keep those relationships on ongoing basis, right? And one of the key problem is that the data in their CRMs, in their ATS, in their Bullhorn is not 100% accurate because people changing jobs, people leaving places, relocating, getting more all that very, very important information is not in their CRM. So basically what we're doing, we're providing an end-to-end platform, data platform that eventually plug into your CRM and keep all the record on one hand up to date with all the current experience of your contact and your candidates. And the second thing we're doing is that we're enriching that data with smart data regarding those records in terms of, if it's candidates, so how many years of experience they have, from which industries they coming from, and if it's your customers, we're looking at historical data. Were they happy from your service? Did they get value, etc.? And that combination of fresh data and curated data with historical data, basically creating a new environment for our customers that now they can ask very complicated questions that they couldn't ask and get much more efficiency. For example, where all my customers that made placements in the past are working now. I want to call them in their new places and give them a call. If you cannot combine your historical data with fresh data, that means that you cannot ask those kind of questions. Same for candidates. Show me X candidates from fintech that we had interviews with them in the past, right? So you need to know that they're working now in fintech, and you need your history to make sure that you had some sort of engagement with them. And that's create a very powerful system that now create a much more opportunities to in the Bullhorn ecosystem to be able to utilize effectively those databases that you have, which are the best prospects that, rather than doing cold outreach, you start being very focused on the people that knows you, whether they're candidates or customers. So in high level, this is what we're doing.
So Liran, every week I run a Wednesday marketing. I call it midweek madness every Wednesday, and we get questions sent from the public every week. And one of the questions, and this is really one of why I was excited to kind of reach out and to get you specifically to talk about this. The question which is leading the high level kind of for us today is, somebody said, how should agencies use RecTech? Or their recruitment technology, recruitment technology to enhance the candidate experience. That was the question. So I've got some questions that I thought we could run through today, to kind of, because I know there's a lot of other questions that's quite a wide topic for us to discuss. Right, there's a lot that goes into that. The first one, and this probably falls on from what you were saying, is, and the first thing I was thinking about was around things like personalization, because we capture a lot of data, right, about about clients, about candidates, and we can use that in lots of different ways. And you mentioned Bullhorn. Obviously, there's websites which I'm part of, the CRM world, which probably is more entwined with yourselves. There's a lot of different things we could do in personalization. So, how would you say that recruitment technology can help agencies provide that, like maybe more personalized candidate experience? And are there any strategies or any thoughts that you might have around that, about how that would work for anyone that might be listening?
Yeah. So first, it's a very, very wide question, because when we speaking about candidate experience, there are so many parts with that experience. Obviously, you guys are well handling the first part of, even engage with candidates that, you may be or may not familiar with your business, and how you take them through a very efficient process of getting in front of the agency. But when we thinking about candidate experience, I want to attach it into the fact of experience means relationship, right? Which means that since things like LinkedIn showed up, before LinkedIn, agencies, the reason they were so successful is because they had like clusters of candidates, and they kept warm relationship with them. So the only way you could find talents is go through agency that maintain beautiful relationship, long-term relationship with a lot of professionals that can introduce you to, right? And then LinkedIn came in, and suddenly the access to professionals were unlimited. So agencies, instead of investing or putting focus on maintaining relationships, they put a lot of focus, or most of their focus, on building new relationships, right? Like, how do I get, and that means that I keep buying or keep investing a lot of money of bringing a lot of candidates inside. But what about all those candidates that I already know, right? What happened with basically, there is no relationship. So if it's, let's call it one night stand, where you meet a candidate, you try to do something together or not, if that end here, I would assume that's a bad experience, right? Because from the candidate perspective, there is no difference between your agency or someone else's agency if it's a very, very short relationship. But imagine that if you would be able to be the agency that knows everything about me, including the fact that I got married, including the fact that I just relocated to a new place, or got promoted, or that I'm probably seeking for my next opportunity at that point because of many things that happening, right? That would be a beautiful experience for me, because that agency keep overwatching me, not in a suspicious way, but in a good way, right? And be able to approach me and be able to be in touch with me once in a while in a good, timely manner, meaning every time that probably I might be more open, right, to discuss my next step in my career. And that's create an amazing experience. And it's not just about the experience, that's create a new type of business for me as an agency, because instead of keep all my focus on building new relationship, I'm putting a lot of my focus on maintaining existing relationship, which means that a lot of my interactions are warm interactions. Warm interaction are usually much more effective than cold interaction, right? In terms of conversion, in terms of everything else. So I would say that in order to achieve that kind of ultimate experience, where on one hand, there is a great experience when I first meet the agency through tools like SourceFlow, but on the other hand, there is a great experience on the ongoing for the long run. This is where brand becoming something that is important for the candidate, right? Is something that even if they consider by themselves, okay, I need to consult someone, they know that that agency knows them. They know that that agency interact with them, right? So they have an address to go to, right? Like before LinkedIn. So I think that's going to be the next big thing. And I will tell you why I think this is now the timing. And I think this is now the timing, because in order to do that, right, that requires a lot of information to digest. Imagine that you have an agency like with 200,000 candidates in your repository. There is no way that your recruiters will come every day and will start, okay, what is that candidate, what is going on with them, and what going on with that. And it's actually not possible. The reason I think now it's possible, because of two things: a combination of data and LLM and AI. Because eventually, in order to be able to track and maintain those relationships in a good way, you need to be able to digest a lot of data points around a specific candidate, right? From the social environment, from from their historical environment, from what's happening with them, or from and from your needs as an agency. There is no point to connect with someone that you don't have anything really important to tell them, right? So it has to be a combination of a lot of data points, the vacancies I have with the candidates, with the relationship, with what happened in the history, and all those things need to come together in order to guide you, right? When is the right time to interact with that candidate, and in what are we going to interact with that candidate? And in order to do it in the best way, you need to combine a lot of data points together with an AI that eventually can digest those data points in order to give you the right insight regarding when you want to connect with those candidates, when is the right time. Maybe now, just for example, if you see a candidate career cycle moving every 2 years a job, you know that if he landed or she landed on a job a year and a half ago, you want to start speaking with them, right? So all those kind of things and all those kind of data point digesting, there are countless of them, right? You need to put them in one place, and you need to make sure that that information is highly curated, and then you need to put an LLM or whatever AI technology that you want in order to start producing you insights. So the way I envision it, and the way we going to provide it, as part, we're going to be part of it, is that eventually recruiter needs to go to come in the morning and say, okay, this is my vacancy, right? And I want to get the 5 top talents, right, for that vacancy. But the matching that needs to be here is not about, the talent profile. It's about all the things I just mentioned. What is his social activity? What is the history with that talent? What he's doing now? When he probably will consider moving to his next job. So there is a lot of things coming into that matching. So if I would need to say the most important thing right now that every agency need to make sure they have is data. Because LLM is going to be accessible to everybody. Everybody can access the API of GPT, right? It's not something that is a private proprietary. So the only thing that stays your proprietary thing is your data, your historical interaction with a lot of people that now you can take advantage, right? In order to be able to utilize them again and again. So that's why we are 100% focused on on data and on fixing, on one hand, data, enriching it, and bring a lot of data in order to eventually implement LLM on that data that will allow you to easily navigate between your candidates and find those needle in haystack in the right time with the right opportunities.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. And there's a real takeaway that I took there, which was something you said kind of early on, which is we used the word it was actually used in the question, I think, what was sent in, which is enhanced candidate experience. But if you change the word experience with relationship,
right,
and then we talk about personalization, what we're actually saying is, in the question is, how do we provide better personalized relationships? And we don't provide them, we create better personal relationships with people. And you only create better personal relationships with people when you know more about that person, right? In any part of our lives, to what you're saying. Because if I work with somebody, I create a better personal relationship because I say, what did you do at the weekend? Or what football team you support, or I'll learn like, how's your wife? Like, oh, I know your kid wasn't well. Are they feeling better? These are all data points that in our human brains we're doing all the time to do this. And I guess what my real takeaway from your answer there, which is a fascinating answer, is we're going to do that with our technology, because our brain becomes the LLM, becomes the AI, but it's better, right? It's arguably better, right? Because it can do these things faster, and it can programmatically do things at a much quicker rate. But that by augmenting our systems that we have with data and improving the data, we can then feed those two things together symbiotically, I guess, bring that together, and then we can build better personal relationships. And then it's down to just how we interface that, either on a call with somebody or through some email or WhatsApp or whatever the communication method might be. It's then down to like how we use that and what cadence we use that at in order to provide it. One of the questions we always get, I kind of always get asked, is like every week I get asked this question, is, and it follows nicely here, is around automation versus the human touch, because that's where my brain's going with your answer. Is okay, because we can automate a lot of stuff, and we can, what's the balance there for you in that? Because for me, I always say that the automation should empower the human to give them the information to kind of build a better experience, right? Like that's what I've always thought. But like, where should be automated maybe, and like where, like that, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on, because I get asked it every week and try and give an answer. But like the natural follow-on is, okay, we can do all this stuff, and like in my head now, I'm actually like, you've given me so much more there actually with that answer. But where do we start to bring humans in? And where's the end of one? Where does one start, one finish, and the other one start, I guess, is the question, and I probably have on that.
Absolutely. And I think this is a key question regarding, when you start thinking about, what will happen when I will combine all the data together with AI. You can even imagine a one-person business where everything is fully automated and all the communication, and suddenly we're going to have a bot, and wow, the ChatGPT voice, it sounds like a realistic person. So now the question is where the human is getting in. And I think that, it's hard to tell, but I think that eventually, everything around, there are two things here in terms of the human interaction. One is that, everybody has AI now in their hands, but there are some people that know how to do a lot of very, very creative things with AI. And there are people that just using AI, to get knowledge and to get information, and they're not taking it beyond, what it could do. Now, those people that taking it beyond, it's not that they're programmers or tech people, they just have in their minds a very creative things to ask the AI or to execute, and that's why it's very, very efficient for them. So I see the human thing here, exactly here. That's the first thing, is how, okay, now you have the AI, now you have the data, right? So if you're putting everything on automation, you have a very limited set of rules and capabilities that you're going to implement, and that's going to be automated. But where is the creativity that's coming on and the evolution that's coming on towards it, right? So if I'm now a recruiter, I can be more sophisticated, and I can ask the AI other things like, what, show me all the candidates that we had a great history, and now they're in cyber, and someone from my network, from my session network, has a connection with them, right? Because that's something. So now the AI will give her maybe better results, and he will test them, and will figure out, wow, that's an amazing way to find great candidate. So it's endless the way you can manipulate or try to think about, okay, what would generate for me the best outcome. AI is not yet to think about all the possible permutation. Eventually, the topic is, okay, I have a vacancy, let's please make a hire, right? Like that's what you can ask the AI. I don't care, like just go and do whatever you want. But we're not there. There is still in between of, okay, you have all the capabilities, how do I going to make that placement? So I need to be able to ask very creative questions about each one of my vacancies. And without the human level, it's going to be very, very limited in terms of what you're capable of doing with that AI in every specific vacancy or case that you have. So that's one thing. I think that we will see more people coming to, like, the new recruiter will know how to be very creative with operating an AI, right, in a way that it will bring them the best results when they're looking at a vacancy. Same like today, a better recruiter will make better searches on LinkedIn, right, to find the right people. So everybody has the technology which called LinkedIn, but there are certain people that know to do much better job with that technology than other people, right? So the human interaction with the technology is very important. So that's going to be a very competitive thing between businesses that operating through an AI. The other thing, which I think is still there, is that eventually, no matter, you know, how the initiation of that interaction started, you getting into a certain point where you want to speak with a person, whether it's on sales or whether it's on recruiting, which is the same thing as sales, because emotions are something that is very hard for AI today to digest or to understand. And it's a very emotional process, right? Changing a job is a very emotional process. It has a lot of fears. It has a lot of uncertainty. It has a lot of other emotional things. And a great recruiter, same like a great salesperson, know how to identify those emotions and be able to work accordingly and to address those concerns or problems. AI is less sensitive, at least now, and in the near future or the soon future, at least, to those kind of interactions. So I believe those are the two key elements where people still will be involved in that, you know, new type of ecosystems.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. You know, I was at an event last week where it was, I think one of the questions was, will AI ever replace the recruiter? And it's hard to say. The actual honest answer is it's really difficult to say whether it will or it won't, because the question's probably, will AI replace humans? That's kind of the question, rather than necessarily will it replace recruiters. I think it could replace some recruiters, is my honest answer, right? And I saw this, I've seen this, there's a couple of agencies now who work with Bullhorn who they automate out a lot of their jobs. When I say automate out, is there's a fully automated process where no human will interact with that process. And I think that's interesting because, you know, is that does that mean they've cut all their headcount? No, these were jobs that were like D jobs that they probably wouldn't have worked anyway, but that they managed to bring in an automated process to try and actually work through. And I think that the performance of that will only get better with AI. This is like pre-AI world, to be honest. So I think they will just see better revenue performance from that. Will that creep into C jobs and B jobs? I think so, probably. And will that take jobs away? Maybe. But the way I say it is that it will probably just free up the better people, or just free up their people to go and spend maybe more time with the client and doing that more human interaction piece, because it's taken away all the stuff that they didn't want to work on. And then maybe one day all their jobs get dealt with via AI and some kind of automation, and they are simply there to manage, I say simply, more complexly, there to manage relationships, back to the original point, and do that. I think that's how I see the answer to that question at the moment. I don't think it's going to be like AI comes in and just removes all these recruiters. Like, I don't think it's necessarily going to be that. I think there'll always be a need for human interaction, right? I think we'll always want that. To your point there. So you must have heard that question before, right? Where people have said, like, is it going to replace the recruiter? And
yeah.
You know,
and by the way, if you think about it, like imagine a staffing agency without recruiters, right? So potentially it's a very efficient, high margin business, but eventually what is the differentiation between company agency A and agency? If they're both fully automated, it doesn't really matter, right? So it's two machines that competing with each other. And I think that what will happen is that you will see the third agency that says, you know what is my different? I'm still giving the personal attitude. And then they will win or at least defer themselves from the others. So I don't think it's going to go to fully automated process. At least we're talking about the next few years. It's very hard to tell what will come after. But right now, I think the key competitive things that every agency need to make sure they're very ready is that their proprietary data, their history with all their talents, with all their clients, will be accessible, will be curated, and LLMs and AI will be able to use that data once all those technologies becoming in the mainstream. Right now, it's still a very it's still not in that kind of level. But those agencies that will not pay attention to that, I would say that they will see their competitors, doing crazy things in terms of interacting with customers and with candidates that they will not be able to achieve, and they will be a few years back to start building their information towards that kind of technology, which might going to be too late. So I think that's a critical thing. Everybody speak about AI and laughing. Yeah, we all mentioning an AI, discussing, but eventually the most critical thing with AI is that is reducing the barrier to entry to competitors. It's creating a much easier environment for every competitors to come in. So the only things that stands for you, or the main important that stands for you as a business in that kind of competition, is your proprietary data and your people, right? Those are the two main things that you need to preserve as a unique thing that will create a unique value for your customers and candidates.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with that. I mentioned right at the start that 2022, you ruined my Bullhorn Engage by accident by being the most popular vendor there, and I joke with that, but I was very envious of that. And but one of the reasons for that is because you guys have done such a good job of firstly getting a product fit within the CRM. I think that's brilliant. Actually, you're and you've highlighted it beautifully here, but just this ability to augment your database with this full picture, right? This full picture, and your technology will only get better, and access to data will only get better. Like, that's the exciting thing for me with where that's going. I think all that stuff is just so important. And as you said, your proprietary access to data, I guess, like your productization of your own data, I think is vital. One of the things I was really keen to hear from you about, and probably you more than anyone because of where you sit in that ecosystem, is about predictive analysis of data, right? And I think this question is sort of the passive candidate question and passive client question. I think predictive analysis it means passive, because we all dream about this, like, the science fiction thing where you put the headset on. Minority Report, was it? Where it's like you can see when somebody's going to commit a crime before that where it happens. I think there's a beauty, though, in where we are sort of heading right now, which is actually with the amount of data that we have and the historical data. I'm a big history buff. My wife's got a history, very good history degree. Probably one of the things that drew me to it. But history can tell us a lot about the future, right? What's happened in the past can tell us a lot about the future. And I was interested to get your take on, like, how can predictive analysis improve candidate experience, or candidate relationship, probably as we should call it now. But also just to hear your views on that general topic, because that must be something that people speak to you. Like, how can I use this to get a step ahead of things? So yeah, I was really interested to hear your views on that, and see what advice you might have for people, and to see whether it's a real thing right now.
Yeah, so predictive interaction in terms of, it's a big topic, but eventually it's aligned with what we already speak about. When you try to, like, if I go to a ChatGPT today and I say, what are my chances to close a deal right now, right? So we'll ask, in which stage are you? And I will mention the stage, and we'll say, let's say 40%. That's prediction is a prediction done on general data that he collected from the entire world, and he gave you a prediction that not necessarily will align with your specific case, right? But imagine that if you have all the information, your historical information right now, and you got a new vacancy. And I'm going to ask the AI now, what is my chances to close that, to win that vacancy? So now the AI can do some very interesting stuff with your proprietary data, looking at similar vacancies that were open in the past. Try to understand which candidate were the best of them. Try to see if you already have those candidates right now and in which stages they are and what are the chances that they going to say yes, and what is the territory of that agency, and how many other agencies serving that company, etc., etc., and eventually will tell you 34%. And that means that now you as a business owner can decide if that works to you or not worse. And maybe then you can ask the AI more sophisticated question, what needs to be done in order to increase it to 60%, right? And now you can keep imagining, but everything I just tell you is based on my proprietary data, right? It's not something that the world has general stats. Maybe I will use some benchmarks and things like this, but again, even when it comes to predictive, you want to learn how to predict based on your proprietary history. Someone needs to have the access to that history and to be able to combine that history and with other data points in order to be able to give you a really high accurate prediction. Same for candidate. When candidates come in, you can get potentially a prediction. What is the chances that you're going to find him a job, right? Not just to match him to a job, to actually get in place. Because think about it, that the AI now can say, okay, those are the 4 jobs that is relevant to that candidate. Let's look at what happened with those customers so far. Oh, they're very easygoing. They're not doing, mainly we have very low success. So it's also a parameter that we need to get into the overall calculation. So that's not possible to do today. Again, you need to collect all the data into one place, and then you will be able to ask those predictive questions regarding chances and other things that now sounds like sci-fi, but it's only a matter of how much that data I can train my machine in order to be able to predict correctly. The more data, proprietary data, I can feed it, the more accurate it's going to be in terms of prediction. So imagine those large corporates, I don't know, Adecco. Imagine how much data they have to train a machine that eventually can be very predictable in terms of every question that the team might going to ask about something that's happening in the business. So definitely the next level of AI, but it's again, it's part of the full service that you're going to get. So it's going to give you chances, it's going to give you insights, it's going to give you suggestions, it's going to give you a lot of things. But again, it needs your proprietary data to be completely organized and fixed and reflecting the reality.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing is that even now, so many businesses, probably not just recruitment agencies, but just so many businesses in general, like the data that they hold in the CRM system will be so poor, right? It will not be good. And it's always, oh, we'll do that soon, or we'll do that when we migrate to another system. There'll be a reason why they're not going to do it today. But I think if you're a recruitment business, staffing business, and there's going to be some metrics that you look at your business, that you measure your business on, right? And it will be like, there'll be metrics like from time from application through to placement and things like that. There'll be those kind of things. So we call that time to hire, right? If we just call it time to hire, that's probably going to be a metric that somebody is looking at their business on. There's going to be metrics around candidate client fit. So usually measured through rebates and things like that in their business. There's going to be a lot of metrics that they have as a recruitment agency, and they are all directly impacted by the answer that you just gave, right? All directly impacted, which is if you have more data and historical data and reams of that data, which is proprietary to you because only you have dealt with that client, with that candidate, with that situation at that moment in time, times 1,000, times Adecco, millions potentially, right? Like before that. By running your LLM, your GPT or whatever it is that you run over the top of it and building these models, that's how you're going to be able to bring that time to hire down, right? Because you might say, that's not a role that we're going to work on, right? Because You might, because like humans want to sell things, right? I do believe that we all want to sell something, right? We're all selling something. But if I said to you, look, it looks like a great opportunity. You think it's a good opportunity, but you've got a 7% chance of closing that opportunity.
Exactly.
Whereas over here, it doesn't look like the most attractive, but this is a 65% chance of closing over here. Which one do you want to do, right? You would say, well, probably give me some of the 65%. Or I like to win, like as people, again, we like to win. So give me the 65, 70, 80% chances. Okay, great. We might find something to do with the sevens. We might understand how we go from a 7 to a 15, right?
Exactly.
Exactly.
This is where the human intervention come in to ask those kind of questions that you just mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, candidate client fit, why are we getting so many rebates? Well, we were putting people in, but maybe we're not screening them hard enough. Maybe based around something that was in their setup as a human was never going to be right, that we never really, because we've looked at the money, we've looked at the placement. Actually, if we do this, it might have been this other candidate, but we don't get rebates because there's a much better fit for that. And that's where I think you start to then look at your client data. I did a talk about this earlier this year about maybe what you need to get is access to other people's data to enhance your business. So if you're working with a client and you said, okay, you've got an ATS, yeah, and you've got HR system, great. Can we have an export of all of that data, please? Because we want to pipe that into our system, so into our AI system. And we want to understand more about what makes your business what it is, so that when we're finding people, we can find the right type of cultural fit or whatever it might be for your business. Now, people might be like, you can't have my data, but do you want the best people or not is kind of the question that I think is happening. And I think, that's what we're saying here. It's like, let's stop bridging that data gap together and start to, really get the most out of what we've got here to find. And this will improve all of those recruitment metrics that people are talking about. I have no doubt about that. This is like, people probably called it big data, didn't they, years ago? It's probably like just where was naturally going to end up with the big data. But for me, it's just like deep insights into a business, right? It's that type of stuff, right? I'm sure if you got a view on that.
And if we go one step backwards in terms of the process and go to the territories that you guys are playing in, which is, okay, how do I bring new candidates? Mm-hmm. This is also a place where you want to be super efficient and super dedicated to the specific case of your own business, right? So tools like SourceFlow will be able to utilize, eventually the end-to-end results of every campaign or everything that happened in a way that now you can really use the data and combine it into how do I optimize my campaigns or the way I bring in candidates based on my history, and not just based on everybody. It's based on my specific cases, because it maybe my brand is less effective, I don't know, on that type of candidates that coming from that type of source, or from, I don't know. But I'm saying there are so many places where you can optimize yourself just by being able to utilize your historical data in terms of how do I get better, how my business is becoming better, and that's going to affect everything you do.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Where do you think this is going then? So in terms of like trends, that I agree that that's kind of like a big part of what we are trying to do, really, is people might see the website side of it, but actually really what we're trying to do is a lot of stuff behind the scenes that gives recruitment agencies, staffing leaders, marketers, obviously, which is kind of a key buying center for us, but gives them access to that type of information. Like, these are the types of people you may want to drive into the website by pulling, ultimately that's where we work well, because you're probably going to tell people this is the type of leader that you want to attract into your business. And I think that's going to inform marketing teams to say, okay, where do they live? Where do they hunt online? Exactly. I've always just been one of these people that's like, let's fish in the pond where the fish we like swim. It's a much easier way to catch fish that way, right? And the fish we like anyway. And I think that's where it's going. So what do you think the future then looks like for this? Because you guys are so entrenched in the data space, right? Like that's your currency. It's what you guys are really kind of dominating, especially in this space. But where do you think that will go? And in terms of it, like improving relationships, experience, where do you think that world is heading next?
Yeah, so I think that eventually that will go. If I need to draw my vision, is that imagine that I don't see, in the upcoming future, I don't see the day-to-day of professionals is playing with interfaces in many places in order to be able to get what they want, right? Today they wake up in the morning, they go to LinkedIn, they go to the job board, they go to their Bullhorn, they go to SourceFlow, they're doing a lot of things, but eventually what they want is to get placements for their vacancies. That's what they want to do, right? So imagine that the way that I like to envision it is that imagine ChatGPT, but only for your business, right? And that ChatGPT, you can do whatever you want. You can say, hey, good morning, I have that vacancy. Let's start working on it. And the first thing is, let's find that candidates. And it brought you those great candidates that now and explain why those candidates with their history and the social graph and everything, why are they perfect? And then you say, okay, let's build them a communication, or let me call them, or let's do that. Like, there will be interactions that is always one interface that basically in a natural language, like you speaking with your teammates, right? And eventually that machine will hold in the backstage all the data points possible about your organization that we just mentioned, and will be able to serve you the information that you need in the most beautiful way that you can now take actions and do fast things within it. But you don't need all those systems. You just need one place where you can simply ask questions, get answers, and execute. That's what you need. So that's how I envision it, like the superpower assistant for every employee. And that, what will happen today? You have 8 years employees and you have B tiers employees. And sometimes the difference between them is that the 8-year employee know how to do a lot of stuff with a lot of places and combine a lot of things. But eventually with that kind of technologies, everyone will become A player, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I think about it and what I think will happen. Yeah. So what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think you're far wrong there at all. I mean, there are, I saw one the other day that we're going to enter an interesting phase, right? Which is that the technologies now, like our technologies, are still relatively new technologies in terms of our business, right? Our businesses aren't old; they're relatively new businesses, right? In the grand scheme of things, a lot of the CRM systems that are built are kind of traditional database type CRMs, right? They've started with tables and they kind of built them out, and then they kind of bolted on and they've changed the interfaces and things like that. Actually, what we're going to start to see, and we are seeing now, and you mentioned it a little earlier, is we're seeing like AI first systems coming through, right? So AI built CRM systems and AI built whatever interfaces for, like, we're entering a phase, and it's not just here's a wrapper of GPT around something. It's like here's a very, very clever AI use case for a lot of different things. And you starting to see that you ask it the question. It's almost like your assistant. I think that's one thing. I think the other will be as a training aid. I think AI can impact two big areas. One will be learning and development, and the other one will be healthcare, right? If you just park healthcare.
Yeah.
But the learning, and I said this last week, what I'd like to see is agencies who invest in some kind, or somebody who builds it, even some software where it's like a training agent at the hand, to your point, for every recruiter. So you will come in and you'll have a system which is like a system of record that holds and stores the data, because that has to go somewhere. There's lots of data points that we're collecting in that has to still sit somewhere. But maybe there's like an interface, a separate interface for it, which then interfaces all of that and other tools centrally into one place. And it starts to say, and you might say, I'm struggling to find candidates for this. Okay, well, historically we found that we could find them from here. Have you considered doing this? Would you like me to create an ad for you to put it out here because we think there's going to be a rate? It might cost you this, but And as a recruiter, you can almost turn up like day one in the job and not worry about training videos and about how we do this, because you can just ask this thing and it's going to be a 24/7. Yeah, it's going to be 24/7 accurate, like I'm going to say politicized, politically biased internally. Like we've all been working for recruitment businesses who the trainer might have, or like the trainer is a top biller. The top biller is only a top biller because they were given this one great account, but they're actually not a great recruiter. Why is that person training our people? Like I see that all the time. But actually this thing can just turn up and say, oh no, this is the fact. And actually, if you want to be great, if you want to be an A player, you just need to do this. Like this is what is going to make you great. And then likewise, it might say, Matt, you haven't updated the data. You haven't done this. I need a bit more from you on this for if you want us to be successful in filling this role. And you're like, okay, right, I need to go do that. And I think that will start to change how, it'll change how agencies hire. I think it'll change how agencies promote. I think it will change the overall structure of the recruitment agency team and what that looks like. But I think it will massively improve efficiency and overall performance by being able to do that, as long as people are willing to listen to what the computer is going to tell them to do, right? As long as, I guess that's always a fail point. But yeah, I think that's probably where it'll go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you mentioned a great point is that, eventually when we selling or providing our customers new tools, we basically want to provide them new capabilities, but eventually sometimes the difficulties come when it comes to the training, because in order to gain those capabilities, they need to learn how to interact with our interfaces and over. But imagine that now you bringing a new capability to a company, and right from their natural language, they can just speak that new capability without learning any interface, which means that their adoption is going to be much, much faster and much easier in that manner. And that's going to do good for everyone, for the provider of the technology and for the companies who purchase it and want to enjoy it as fast as possible. So definitely, it's a good point.
Yeah, exactly. But it comes back to, and we'll probably finish with this, but it comes back to the data quality that you have to have in your systems today.
Right.
I think that's the key thing here. If you're a business, there'll be recruitment marketers, there'll be recruitment business owners, there'll be people who watch this, there'll be recruiters who watch this back, and they will hopefully be realizing that if the data quality isn't good and there isn't the depth of it, and they're not augmenting that now or considering augmenting it with companies such as with Woo, I don't think there's anyone else who does it anywhere, is it with Woo, then they've got a problem, right? Because other companies have and are doing this, and they are going to have a much better experience when they run the AI over the top of this. So when Bullhorn fully roll out their AI product, which will probably be 2025, I think, when we start to really see it as a product that people use more, I think those companies that don't have that data are going to get a shock when they go, oh, it doesn't really work for us. It's like, yeah, because it doesn't know what it's meant to be doing. It doesn't have time to close it, because you don't put all. I was talking to a marketer the other day, and he said that they've got 1,000 live jobs in Bullhorn and only 50 of them are on the website. So that means there's 50 job descriptions. That's 50 data points from the website that they can't plug in to understand the types of people that apply through their website. And that's where AI is going to struggle, because it won't have 1,000 jobs worth of data to say, these are the types of people that apply and where they apply from, like the sources. And then do we place people? This is our highest performing source. Like it's not going to know that if we don't start to apply it over the top of it. So I think if there's a takeaway that I've taken from this, is that CRM data now, it needs to be up to date, but it needs to be also augmented with additional touch points and information to really capitalize on AI when it rolls out. And ultimately, the question was about candidate experience. This is candidate experience. Like, this is how we build better personalized relationships, is exactly what we just spoke about here. I could talk all day about this. We probably will talk at the next Bullhorn event about this quite in depth, I'm sure. But yeah, have you got any final thoughts or takeaways that you kind of want to add on top of that?
Yeah, I think first it was a very exciting, very interesting topic to discuss, and I think for me, dealing with data, obviously it's critical for the next steps we're going through, and it's also critical for the existing step where people wants to utilize the data effectively, to run automation, to run analytics, to run all those beautiful and great tools that were developed. But eventually, everything is relied on curated and completed data. And that's, for me, it's a critical mission for our company. This is what we focus. This is what we want to continue be the best at. And really appreciate the time you gave me to discuss about this great topic. And yeah, as you said, I'm sure we're going to continue this when we're going to meet and engage, for sure. We didn't cover
100%.
some very interesting.
Yeah, so there's a lot more. If people want to contact you, personally, business-wise, what's the best way of doing that?
Yeah, so they can contact Liran. It's Liran @woo.io. Yeah, and would love to hear any feedback or thoughts. I'm there.
Perfect. Liran, it's a pleasure to have you, as always. Good to talk. It's one of the kind of more visionary people, I think, in the industry. So it's very nice to chat about technology with somebody for 45, 50 minutes or so there. And thank you everyone for watching. We will continue this series. We've got a bunch more people that are lined up to jump on our expert insights. Get the questions in for Midweek Madness. That helps drive these. So if you're watching this and you've got questions, send them over. Leave them in any of the comments on any of the social media platforms we put this on. And until next time, thanks for watching.
Thank you, Matt. Bye-bye, guys.